Я же сказала, это беспилотник.
Ukraine's drone swarm inflicts $110 million loss, cripples Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport. Today, Moscow learned that air defense is not defined solely by radar range, interceptor speed, or the number of missile batteries on standby. It is also constrained by human endurance, decision-making, and time. Over a single winter night, Ukraine demonstrated how patience, psychological pressure, and low-cost engineering could dismantle a defensive system built with investments measured in billions. What unfolded over Russia's largest airport was not a frontal assault, but a methodical collapse of alertness and response. By the time the smoke cleared, Russian authorities faced an estimated $110 million in direct losses, alongside operational disruptions that could not be repaired quickly or discreetly. This outcome was neither accidental nor improvised. To understand how Ukraine achieved it, the sequence must be traced from the very beginning. At 2:13 a.m., in a frozen field near Konotop in northern Ukraine, approximately 298 miles from the Kremlin, a dark silhouette lifted silently from the snow. Measuring just over 15 feet in length, the Luchi drone appeared unsophisticated by conventional standards. It was powered by a modest 50-horsepower engine, comparable to those used in high-end snowmobiles, and carried a 75-pound warhead. The airframe was described as utilitarian, optimized for payload delivery and range rather than appearance. Its value lay not in appearance, but in function. Within minutes, it was joined by others. A total of 24 Luchi heavy strike drones took to the air, accompanied by 44 Rubaka one-way attack drones, assembling into a loose V-shaped formation and turning north toward Russian airspace. Inside a hardened operations bunker in Kyiv, Ukrainian personnel monitored the initial phase of the flight. Telemetry and tracking data remained stable during departure. On their displays, the objective was clear: Sheremetyevo Airport, Russia's largest aviation hub and a critical node for both civilian traffic and military logistics. According to intelligence-linked assessments, the airport had recently served as a transit point for high-value military cargo, including guidance components associated with S-400 air defense systems shipped from eastern Russia. Under standard operational planning, reaching that cargo would have been considered highly unlikely. Between the launch point and the airport lay one of the most densely layered air defense environments in the country. As the drones crossed deeper into Russian airspace, multiple defensive layers began to activate. Several Pantsir S-1 short-range air defense systems, each valued at approximately $15 million, powered up their X-band radars. Long-range S-400 batteries adjusted tracking parameters and engagement priorities. On Russian tactical displays, the approach corridor toward Moscow appeared saturated with overlapping detection and engagement zones. Under conventional assumptions, slow-moving propeller-driven drones should have been detected, tracked, and destroyed well before approaching the capital. Ukraine's plan did not attempt to defeat those systems directly. Instead, it sought to erode their effectiveness over time. For 9 nights prior, Ukrainian forces conducted what some observers informally referred to as Operation Advent Calendar, a campaign of desensitization designed to drain ammunition, disrupt routines, and induce hesitation. Small waves of cheap wooden decoy drones, informally referred to by observers as beavers, were launched towards the Moscow region. Each decoy carried a simple Lüneburg lens, a radar reflector costing roughly $50, designed to significantly amplify its radar signature. To Russian radar operators, these decoys appeared far larger and faster than they truly were, often resembling advanced aircraft profiles. During the first nights, Russian responses were immediate and forceful. Pantsir batteries fired full missile salvos, frequently emptying their 12 missile magazines. Twin 30mm autocannons expended thousands of rounds. Russian social media channels circulated videos celebrating successful interceptions. However, each interception imposed a cost. Interceptor missiles worth hundreds of thousands of dollars were expended against decoys, costing a fraction of that amount. Reload crews were kept on continuous cycles. Autocannon barrels overheated from sustained fire. More significantly, radar operators and fire control crews endured prolonged alert states with limited rest. By the 7th and 8th nights, behavioral patterns began to shift. Operators hesitated before authorizing launches. Each new radar contact prompted uncertainty, decoy, or genuine threat. Analysts later assessed that this hesitation, measured in seconds, created the exact vulnerability the main strike was timed to exploit. At 2:40 a.m., the real strike force entered its final approach phase. The drones skimmed low over the Bryansk forests at approximately 120 feet above ground, remaining below effective radar horizons. At the same time, heavy snow began falling across the Moscow region. For radar systems, snowfall introduces significant backscatter, filling displays with noise and false returns. The drones advanced deliberately into these conditions, using the weather as concealment rather than allowing it to degrade navigation. Russian commanders, recognizing deviations from previous decoy patterns, escalated their response. Pantsir S-1 units shifted to heightened alert modes, and Krasuka 4 electronic warfare systems were activated. The broadband jamming disrupted satellite navigation and command links. In Kyiv, Ukrainian operators observed telemetry degradation and intermittent signal loss, consistent with GPS spoofing and link interference. The drones, however, did not rely on continuous external control at this stage. This moment marked the transition to autonomous navigation. Ukrainian engineers had anticipated complete signal disruption. The drones executed a pre-programmed protocol shift, transitioning from satellite guidance to optical terrain matching. Using onboard cameras and preloaded satellite imagery, they compared roads, tree lines, and structures in real time. Control links were no longer required. The formation descended further, reducing altitude from 120 feet to approximately 50 feet above ground, weaving between trees in true nap-of-the-earth flight. On Russian radar screens, the situation deteriorated. Targets blended into ground clutter, compounded by snowfall and terrain masking. Distinguishing carbon fiber drones from environmental returns became increasingly difficult. By 2:56 a.m., command coherence began to degrade. With radar tracking unreliable, Pantsir crews increasingly relied on optical systems. Orders were issued to clear sectors using volume fire rather than precision tracking. The night sky over the outskirts of Moscow erupted. Interceptor missiles accelerated to Mach 3 within seconds of launch. Twin 30mm autocannons fired at rates exceeding 2,500 rounds per minute per system, creating dense curtains of tracer fire. This was the planned moment of sacrifice. The 44 Rubaka drones climbed slightly higher than the main formation, increased acoustic output, and presented themselves as primary targets. One by one, they were destroyed. Some detonated under proximity fuses. Others were shredded by cannon fire. Each loss consumed ammunition and time. By 3:05 a.m., the final Rubaka drone crashed into the snow. Russian crews assessed the engagement as a complete success. 44 targets destroyed. No apparent penetrations. Brief celebrations followed inside several command vehicles. What went unnoticed was the silence that followed. Missile tubes were empty. Autocannon barrels glowed from sustained fire. Reload vehicles were still en route and would require several minutes to restore combat readiness. During this window, the remaining 24 Luchi drones executed a hard turn and descended even lower, flying at approximately 10 feet above ground, skimming power lines, roads, and infrastructure. Fires and explosions from the earlier engagement added visual and environmental chaos, further masking movement. Under field conditions, a Pantsir reload cycle can require several minutes, creating a narrow but exploitable window. The Luchi drones needed less time to reach their final approach points. At 3:09 a.m., with under 2 minutes remaining, the airspace over Sheremetyevo appeared deceptively calm. Crews believed the threat had passed. Then the drones pitched upward, climbing rapidly to approximately 400 feet above ground. This brief exposure was deliberate. To penetrate reinforced surfaces, the impact angle needed to be steep. As the drones rose above terrain masking, radar returns briefly separated from ground clutter. Multiple new contacts appeared almost simultaneously over the airfield. The nearest Pantsir battery attempted to engage, but reported 0 missiles remaining. Firing controls produced only dry clicks. A secondary battery launched its final 2 missiles. One failed to acquire a stable track. The other struck a Lucci drone, sending it crashing short of the fuel storage area. Small arms fire from airfield security damaged 2 additional drones. 21 remained operational. The surviving drones entered terminal guidance. Optical sensors searched for high-contrast linear features. The 2 primary runways, 07R and 25L, stood out clearly against the snow-covered ground. At 3:11 a.m., one drone inverted and dove into runway 07R at approximately 180 miles per hour. Its delayed action warhead penetrated the asphalt before detonating beneath the surface, creating a crater roughly 25 feet wide and 8 feet deep. Within seconds, 3 additional drones struck runway 25L, severing both primary arteries of the airport. 4 drones diverted toward the northern fuel farm, impacting jet fuel storage tanks. Approximately 40,000 gallons of aviation fuel ignited, producing a fireball that rose hundreds of feet into the air. The resulting smoke plume degraded infrared sensors across the airfield, further blinding remaining defenses. The final 13 drones used the smoke and confusion to strike the cargo terminal, where crates containing S-400 guidance components were stored. The explosions were contained but effective. Within a short span, Sheremetyevo was operationally paralyzed. All 21 surviving drones reached their assigned targets. Subsequent assessments estimated approximately $110 million in immediate losses related to runway reconstruction, fuel infrastructure damage, grounded aircraft, and destroyed airport facilities. Separately, the destruction of specialized military cargo reportedly destroyed specialized guidance components intended for 12 new S-400 batteries, delaying the activation of 3 air defense regiments for approximately 11 days. The consequences extended beyond the airfield. Initial reports indicated 212 flights were cancelled within the first hour. At least 8 civilian airliners reportedly sustained shrapnel damage and were grounded pending inspection. Russian commanders faced an immediate strategic dilemma: reinforce air defenses around Moscow or maintain coverage along the frontline sectors. Within 42 hours, Ukrainian aircraft conducted precision strikes in southern regions, encountering reduced resistance consistent with temporary coverage gaps. Today's operation demonstrated that Ukraine achieved success not through overwhelming force, but through sequencing, discipline, and a calculated understanding of human and systemic limits. Russia lost infrastructure, equipment, and confidence in the reliability of its layered defenses. With losses estimated at $110 million and broader consequences still unfolding, the question now confronting Moscow remains unresolved. The unresolved question was whether Russia would concentrate defenses around the capital or accept renewed exposure along the front. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more updates.